Okay, so you're gearing up for a chemistry technician interview, right? And we're diving deep into RoleCatcher's guides to help you nail it.
These guides are fascinating. They go way beyond the typical advice and give real insights into what employers actually want.
I know. It's like they're reading the minds of hiring managers.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Especially when you're trying to show off your technical skills and, that understanding of the role.
Yeah, for sure. So let's start with the basics. Like, what does a chemistry technician actually do? I mean, it's not all, beakers and Bunsen burners, right?
Not at all. It's definitely hands-on, usually in a lab or production facility. You're working alongside chemists, maybe monitoring chemical processes, running tests, analyzing substances.
Mm-hmm.
But it's also a lot about problem solving. You need to adapt to different situations, right? And sometimes you might even get to contribute to research and development.
Okay, that's where those soft skills come in, I bet.
Definitely,
We'll
definitely.
touch on those later. But first, let's talk about RoleCatcher's secret weapon. Their AI, right?
Mhm.
It's basically like having a personal career coach
It really is.
right in your pocket.
Their AI, it analyzes job descriptions and tells you exactly what skills to emphasize in your resume.
It's amazing, like having a recruiter whispering in your ear,
Exactly.
telling you what they're looking for. Plus, and this is crazy,
Oh, and this is the best part.
they have this database of employers who are using the system in reverse.
They might find you before you even apply.
Okay, that's next level job hunting. All right, let's get to the heart of this deep dive,
Yeah,
those interview questions.
yeah.
So we're going to cover some key ones from RoleCatcher's guide, and I'm going to be asking you for like the inside scoop on how to tackle them.
Okay, let's do it.
Ready?
Yeah.
All right. First up, describe your experience with analytical instrumentation. I feel like this is a classic, but it's also your chance to really stand out.
It is. It is. This is where you really get to show off your technical expertise. Don't just
Yeah.
list instruments, right? Talk about the specific analyses you've done, challenges you faced. Even talk about times you had to troubleshoot a tricky instrument.
Yeah. So instead of just saying, I've used a gas chromatograph,
Right.
I can say something like, I used gas chromatography to analyze the purity of organic compounds synthesized in the lab.
Good.
And one time, I actually had to troubleshoot a faulty detector,
Oh,
which taught me the importance of regular calibration and preventative maintenance.
that's a great example.
That's good.
You've demonstrated skills, problem-solving abilities, even that commitment to quality control.
Right.
Now imagine if the interviewer then says, well, what were some of the specific challenges you faced during that troubleshooting process, and how did you approach them?
Oh, that's a good one.
Right.
So you ready for those follow-ups?
That's what they're looking for.
It's like they're trying to see how you think.
Exactly. They want someone who can think critically and then apply that knowledge.
For sure. Okay, next question. How do you ensure accuracy and precision in your work? This feels like it's about more than just being careful, right?
Oh, for sure. It's about that scientific rigor. Think about things like standard operating procedures, double-checking those results, identifying potential sources of error, everything that makes sure that data is reliable.
Okay, so could I share a story about a time maybe I noticed inconsistent readings? Like once I noticed inconsistent readings during a spectrophotometry analysis.
Ooh, I like that.
It turned out the cuvette was contaminated, which really highlighted the importance of, meticulous sample preparation.
Perfect. You're observant, you're proactive, and you understand the importance of those tiny details. That also opens the door for the interviewer to dig a little deeper.
Right.
They might ask, what steps did you take to make sure that contamination wouldn't happen again?
Oh, good point. So then I can talk about implementing better cleaning protocols
Yes.
or double checking the equipment before each use.
Yes.
It's all about showing that I learned from those experiences.
Precisely. Now, before we move on, I have to mention this cool thing about RoleCatcher's AI.
Oh, yeah.
You can actually use it to practice answering these questions.
Really?
And get feedback.
Tell me more.
Yeah, so you record yourself answering a question,
Uh-huh.
and then their AI analyzes it, and it'll tell you things like how clear you were you concise, did you use the right technical language?
Oh, wow.
It's amazing.
Yeah, it's amazing. It's like a mock interview.
Yeah.
But I can do it anytime, anywhere.
Exactly.
Okay, so back to the questions. This one's about time management. So how do you prioritize and manage your workload in a fast-paced laboratory environment? And labs can get hectic.
They can.
So they want to know, can you handle the pressure?
Sure. It's about being organized and knowing how to adapt.
So I could talk about, how I prioritize tasks, maybe using to-do lists or color coding by urgency.
Love it.
But I know examples really help. So
Yeah.
I could say something like, in my previous lab role,
Hmm.
we had this sudden influx of samples because of a large research project. So I had to quickly reprioritize tasks, delegate some responsibilities to make sure we met deadlines,
Mm-hmm.
and just communicate effectively with the team so we didn't have bottlenecks.
That is a great example. You've shown you're adaptable, you work well on a team, you focus on deadlines, which is all key in a fast-paced lab.
Yeah.
The interviewer might then ask, well, how did you actually handle that delegation process? What steps did you take to make sure everyone was on the same page and that you were all working efficiently?
Okay, yeah. So that's where I could talk about specific communication strategies like, regular team meetings
Uh-huh.
or maybe using a project management tool to track
Yeah.
everyone's progress.
Exactly. So you're not only handling your own work, but you're helping the whole team succeed.
Right. Teamwork makes the dream work.
It does. It does.
Okay, shifting gears now to a topic that's super important in any lab,
Mm-hmm.
safety.
So
So the question is, how do you ensure safety in the laboratory? Now, this feels pretty straightforward, but I'm guessing there's a way to go beyond just listing safety protocols?
there is. You want to show that you're not just following the rules, you're really invested in creating a safe space for yourself, for everyone.
Right, okay. So instead of just saying, I always wear my PPE,
Right.
I could say, I'm always super mindful of potential hazards, and I go beyond just the basic protocols. Like, once I noticed a chemical container that wasn't labeled properly, and that could have been really dangerous, a mix-up.
Right.
So I reported it immediately, and I actually helped put a system in place for double-checking labels.
That's great. You're proactive, you pay attention to detail, and you go above and beyond for safety.
I like it.
They might even ask you, well, what steps did you take to implement that double-checking system?
That's a good point.
Yeah.
And then I could talk about how I worked with my colleagues, maybe research best practices, even presented a proposal to management.
Exactly.
Shows initiative.
It does. Those are qualities any employer would love.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we've covered a lot, and I'm definitely getting a better handle on how to answer these questions. But can we switch gears for a sec and talk about career paths for chemistry technicians?
Of course.
What does RoleCatcher's Guide say about that?
They actually do a great job of outlining typical career progressions. So like from entry level all the way to senior positions.
Oh, wow. Okay, so what does that progression typically look like?
Well, someone entry level, they might assist senior chemists, learn those basic lab techniques, get really good at the standard procedures.
Wow.
But as you gain experience, you could move into a role where you're more independent. Maybe you're running your own tests, analyzing data, even contributing to those research projects.
Okay, interesting.
Yeah.
What about long term? Can you specialize or move into leadership?
Absolutely. Some people really get into specific areas like analytical chemistry, quality control, or research and development.
Mhm.
Others might move into supervisory roles where they're leading teams, overseeing projects, even mentoring junior staff.
Wow, so there are a lot of options.
There are. And RoleCatcher's Guide, they even have profiles of like real chemistry technicians at different stages.
Oh, that's cool.
So you can really see what's possible.
I love those real world examples. It makes it so much
Right.
more like concrete.
Right. And remember, these paths, they can really vary by industry.
Oh, that's right. They highlight different industries where chemistry technicians are needed, don't they?
They do. You've got pharmaceuticals, manufacturing, environmental science, but also food science, cosmetics, forensics,
Wow.
even materials science.
So many options.
Yeah.
So I guess the takeaway here is becoming a chemistry technician is not just a job.
It's a starting point.
Yeah. It's a launching pad for a whole world of possibilities.
Exactly. Now, are you ready for some more of those interview questions?
Yeah. Bring it on. Let's see what other gems we can find.
All right. This next one gets pretty specific. It says, describe a time you had to troubleshoot a problem with a piece of laboratory equipment. What steps did you take?
Okay, this one really feels like it's digging into those problem-solving skills. Can I think on my feet?
Exactly. They want to see if you can find the root of the problem.
Not just treat the symptoms.
Not at all.
Okay, so could I maybe walk them through an example, like a time when a spectrophotometer was giving, those inconsistent readings?
Mm-hmm.
So I could talk about how I checked the calibration,
Good.
cleaned the cuvette,
Yeah.
even consulted the manual,
Yes.
before finally realizing the light source was faulty.
That's a great start. But to really impress them, you got to go beyond just describing the steps. Talk about like what you were thinking during each step, you
Right.
know?
Oh, I see.
Why did you check the calibration first?
Right.
What made you suspect the light source?
Okay, so it's about showing that I have a system for troubleshooting, that I'm not just guessing.
Exactly. They want to see that thought process. And don't forget to mention what happened in the end. Did you fix it yourself?
Oh, right.
Did you call a technician? They want to know you can take ownership and find a solution.
And if I did call a technician, I could talk about how I use that as an opportunity to, learn more about the instrument,
Of course.
learn about the maintenance.
Always
It
learning.
shows a willingness to keep learning.
Exactly. Now, before we move on, I have to mention another great thing about RoleCatcher's AI. It's their CV, or resume builder.
Oh, right. I've heard about this. It uses AI to tailor your application materials, right,
Exactly.
to specific jobs.
You upload your resume, and their AI compares it to the job you're applying for.
Oh, wow.
Highlights areas you can improve, suggests keywords to add. It's like having a coach reviewing your resume.
Okay, so it's more than just like a spell check.
Oh, way more. It actually understands the job description,
Mhm.
and then it suggests ways to rephrase things so you really match what they're looking for.
Wow. It sounds like it takes all the guesswork out of resume writing.
It really does. And remember, your resume, it's that first impression.
Yeah.
So having an AI help you create something that really stands out, that's a huge advantage.
Okay, I'm definitely going to check that out. All right, back to the questions. What's next?
Okay, this one often throws people off. Tell me about a time you had to deal with a difficult coworker.
Ooh, that's a tricky one. It's about those interpersonal challenges that can happen anywhere, right?
Exactly. And they're not necessarily looking for drama. They
Right.
want to know how you handle conflict.
Yeah.
How do you communicate?
Right.
Do you stay professional even when things get tough?
So definitely don't badmouth a former colleague.
No.
That's rule number one.
The key is to frame your response so that it shows off your problem-solving skills
Okay.
and that you can work well with people even when you disagree.
Okay, so could I talk about a time when maybe I had to work with someone who had a very different work style than me? Like maybe they were super meticulous and detail-oriented,
Yeah.
and I'm more focused on efficiency and deadlines.
Okay, that's great. Walk me through it. Did you try to see their point of view? Did you communicate clearly, respectfully?
Right, so I could talk about how I sat down with them, explained my work style, asked about theirs.
Uh-huh.
We figured out where we were clashing,
Yeah.
and then came up with a system that worked for both of us, using our strength.
That's great. You're showing you can communicate openly, you're willing to compromise, and you focus on solutions.
Yeah,
The
exactly.
interviewer might then ask, what were some of the specific challenges you faced in that situation, and how did you overcome them?
Oh, that's a good one. And then I can talk about the specific challenges like miscommunication,
Uh-huh.
missed deadlines,
Uh-huh.
and how we work through them.
Exactly. You're showing them that you can handle those tricky situations
Right.
gracefully and professionally.
For sure. Okay, before we jump into more questions, I'm curious about certifications. I know RoleCatcher's Guide talked about professional development.
Yeah, certifications.
Oh.
What's the deal with those? They're a fantastic way to show you're committed to the field and you're willing to learn.
Yeah.
So, what are some certifications that would be good for a chemistry technician?
That's a good question.
Well, there are quite a few depending on your specialization and your career goals. But some common ones are laboratory safety certification, chemical hygiene officer training,
Okay.
certifications related to analytical techniques like chromatography or spectroscopy.
So if I have any of those, I should definitely highlight them
Yes,
in
definitely.
my resume and during the interview.
Absolutely. It shows you're taking your professional development seriously.
And even if I don't have any yet.
You can talk about what you plan to get,
Yeah.
what you're interested in.
Show that commitment to, constant learning.
Exactly. So certifications, they're a definite plus.
Yeah, they are.
Huh.
Okay, I'm ready for more questions.
All right, let's do it. This one's a little more open-ended.
Mm-hmm.
Tell me about a recent advancement in chemistry that particularly excites you.
Ooh, okay. So this one's not really about my skills, but more about, like, my genuine interest in the field.
Exactly. They want to know if you're passionate about chemistry,
Right.
if you're keeping up with new things,
Right.
if you're eager to learn.
Okay, so could I talk about a recent breakthrough in, say, gene editing technology?
You could.
Or, a new method for synthesizing sustainable materials?
Yeah. But don't just state the advancement. Tell them why it excites you.
Right.
How does it connect to your interests or your career goals?
Oh,
Maybe even how you see it impacting the future.
okay, yeah. So instead of just saying, I'm fascinated by CRISPR technology,
Right.
I could say something like, I'm so excited about CRISPR's potential to revolutionize medicine and agriculture.
Uh-huh.
I'm really interested in its applications for developing new disease therapies
Yeah.
and creating more sustainable food sources.
Right.
And I really believe this technology is going to have a huge impact on our world,
Mm-hmm.
and I want to be part of that.
That's fantastic. You've shown passion, knowledge, and that forward-thinking mindset. Now, the interviewer, they might ask, well, how do you see yourself contributing to the field in the future?
Ooh, that's a good one. And that's where I can connect my skills and experience
Right.
to my aspirations.
Right. I
Exactly.
could mention how I want to get into research
Yeah.
or specialize in an area related to that advancement.
It's all about showing them that you're not just looking for a job, but a place where you can really grow and contribute.
Yeah, for sure. Okay, we've covered so many interview questions, and I feel way more confident now.
That's great.
But before we wrap up this section, can we talk about RoleCatcher's AI one last time?
Yeah, of course.
Because I'm still curious about how it can help me, like, really tailor my answers to specific job descriptions.
Okay, so RoleCatcher has this feature where you put in a job description, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it gives you feedback on your answers,
Oh, wow.
specifically calling out what aligns with the job and then suggesting improvements if some things aren't as strong.
Okay, that's amazing.
Right.
So it's like having a personalized coach who knows what that employer wants.
Exactly. It analyzes the keywords, the tone, everything they're saying,
Yeah,
and helps you craft those perfect answers.
that's really, really cool.
And even if you know the stuff and you're a great communicator, tailoring those answers can make a huge difference in how they see you.
Yes. Okay, I'm definitely using that feature. It's a game changer. So we've covered a lot in this first part, right?
We have.
We talked about what a chemistry technician does, dug into those interview questions, explored career paths, talked about certifications,
Yeah.
of course, RoleCatcher's AI.
That AI is amazing.
I know.
Right?
It can really give you an edge. I feel much more confident about my upcoming interview, but I know we've got more to cover.
We do. We're going to look at some more specialized questions, maybe explore some tricky scenarios.
And we'll keep unpacking those insights from RoleCatcher's guide.
All right. So stay tuned for part 2 of our deep dive into the world of the chemistry technician.
Can't wait. Welcome back. Ready for some more of those insightful interview questions from RoleCatcher's guide.
Absolutely. I'm feeling pumped and ready to tackle whatever's next.
All right, let's jump right in. This one focuses on teamwork. It says, describe a time you had to work as part of a team to achieve a common goal. What was your role and what challenges did you face?
Okay, so this one's all about my collaboration skills.
Yeah,
Showing I can contribute to a team.
exactly. Teamwork in a lab setting, it's so essential.
Right.
You're always collaborating, bouncing ideas around, working towards those shared objectives.
So I could talk about a time I worked on a research project, maybe with other technicians, scientists.
Uh-huh.
I could describe my role like maybe I was collecting and analyzing data
Uh-huh.
and talk about the challenge, like those unexpected results or coordinating different parts of the research.
That's a great example. But to make your answer really stand out, focus on the team dynamics. How did you communicate effectively with your teammates?
Right.
Were there any conflicts? How did you guys resolve them?
Okay, so I could talk about maybe we had regular team meetings to discuss progress, share ideas,
Uh-huh.
address any roadblocks.
Love it.
I could even mention a specific instance where maybe there was a disagreement about the data analysis approach and how we work together to find a compromise.
That's excellent. You're showcasing those communication skills, collaboration, problem solving, all in a real world context.
Right. And I bet the interviewer might ask, what did you learn from that experience?
Mm.
Or how would you approach a similar situation differently in the future?
Exactly. They want to see that you're always learning, you're reflecting on those experiences, especially when it comes to working with others.
Okay, makes sense. Next question.
Okay, this one is, how do you stay current with advances in the field of chemistry?
Okay, so this one feels a little different. It's not really about my technical skills, is it? It's more about, my passion, my enthusiasm for chemistry.
You're right on the money. It's about that intellectual curiosity and that commitment to lifelong learning,
Okay.
which is so essential for any scientist.
So I could mention how I attend conferences, I read journals, I even follow, thought leaders in the field on social media.
Great start. But remember, it's not just about listing things you do.
Yeah.
It's about that genuine engagement, right? What are you reading exactly?
Right.
What conferences get you excited?
Right.
What specific areas of chemistry are you most interested in?
Got it. So instead of just saying, I read scientific journals,
Mm-hmm.
I could mention specific titles.
Yes.
Or even articles I found insightful.
Exactly. And if you go to conferences, talk about those presentations or workshops that really resonated with you. Show them you're not just there passively, but you're actively seeking out that new knowledge.
Yeah, totally. And what about those thought leaders on social media? Can I mention specific people I follow?
Absolutely. It shows you're participating in the scientific community, not just observing from a distance.
Okay, so it's about showing I'm immersed in the field and excited about its future.
Exactly. And remember, that enthusiasm, it's contagious. Interviewers love to see it.
All right, next question.
Okay, this one's a bit more technical. Describe your experience with data analysis and interpretation. What software or tools are you familiar with?
Okay, this feels like it's really about my analytical skills.
Yeah.
Making sense of data.
Exactly. It's at the heart of what a chemistry technician does.
So I could talk about, my experience using software like Excel or specialized tools for chromatography or spectroscopy.
Uh-huh.
I could even describe a specific project where maybe I had to analyze a large data set and draw conclusions.
Good start. But remember, don't just list the software. Show them you can actually think critically about the data, find trends, and draw those meaningful conclusions.
Okay, so in my example, I could talk about maybe using statistical analysis to find those patterns, comparing them to existing research, and then presenting my findings in, a clear, concise report.
That's excellent. You're showing your analytical skills, your ability to interpret that data, and your communication skills.
Yeah.
Super important.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet they might ask, what were some of the challenges in analyzing that data?
They might.
Or how did you ensure the accuracy of those results?
Exactly. They want to see that you can analyze the data, but also critically evaluate it,
Right.
which is super important for good science.
Makes sense.
Yeah.
Now, before we jump to the next question, I want to circle back to something you said earlier about RoleCatcher's AI.
Yeah.
Because I'm still curious about how it can help me prep for those tricky behavioral questions.
Well, RoleCatcher has this cool feature. It focuses specifically on those behavioral questions.
Okay.
Gives you prompts, examples, helps you craft those compelling stories to highlight your skills and experiences.
So it's like a brainstorming buddy,
It is. It is.
helping me come up with good examples from my past.
Exactly. And remember, those behavioral questions, they're all about those soft skills, right? Communication, teamwork, problem solving, leadership.
Yeah.
RoleCatcher's AI, it can help you figure out what skills they're looking for in each question.
Yeah.
And then guide you towards the perfect examples from your experience.
That's so helpful. Takes the pressure off trying to remember everything on the spot.
Exactly. It helps you showcase what's relevant to the job.
And we know those soft skills are just as important as those technical ones.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They're looking for the whole package.
Okay, what's the next question?
All right, let's see. Describe a time you encountered an unexpected result or problem during an experiment. How did you troubleshoot the situation?
Okay, so this was all about, thinking critically, troubleshooting on the fly, staying cool under pressure.
Exactly. Unexpected stuff happens all the time in the lab. They want to see if you can handle it.
So could I talk about a time I was running, maybe a chromatography experiment,
Uh-huh.
and the results just made no sense?
What did you do?
So I could describe how I retraced my steps, checked the equipment, even asked some senior colleagues before realizing, oh, I used the wrong solvent.
Okay, good example. But really emphasize your thought process, how you problem solved.
Right. So I could explain, I started by ruling out the simple stuff, like the instrument or a calculation error,
Uh-huh.
and then I systematically went through each step, checking the manual, even looking online,
Uh-huh.
until I pinpointed that problem.
Love it. You're showing that logical approach, that willingness to research, and that persistence to find the answer.
Yeah, for sure. And I bet they'll ask, what did you learn from that experience? Or even, how did you make sure it wouldn't happen again?
Exactly. They want to see that you learn from those mistakes, you prevent future ones, and you're always improving those lab practices.
Right. So it's all about showing I can handle those curveballs in the lab.
Right. Exactly. And remember, those unexpected things, they're actually great opportunities to learn and grow, so embrace them.
Okay, I like that. Now, before we get to more questions, can we go back to career paths for a minute?
Sure.
RoleCatcher's Guide mentions specialization. I'm curious to hear more about that.
Oh, absolutely. So As you gain experience, you might find you gravitate towards certain areas of chemistry
Right.
or certain techniques. Some technicians really focus on analytical chemistry, developing and performing those methods using really fancy instruments.
So if I'm really interested in chromatography or spectroscopy, I could specialize in that.
Exactly. Others get into quality control, making sure products meet those standards and regulations.
Uh,
And some even transition into research and development roles, working on new products or investigating new discoveries.
okay, so lots of room for growth and specialization.
There is. And remember, those specializations, they often need additional training or certifications.
Right.
So keep learning.
So it's about finding what I'm passionate about and then pursuing those growth opportunities.
Exactly. And keep in mind, those specializations change as chemistry advances.
Right, right.
New technologies pop up all the time, so be adaptable.
Okay, so it's about staying curious, being open to those new challenges. I like it. Ready for more questions?
You bet. Let's dive into one that looks at your attention to detail. How do you ensure data integrity and accuracy in your work?
Okay, this one's all about being meticulous, right?
Yes.
Understanding those quality standards.
Exactly. Data integrity is key in science. Employers need to know that you get it, that you value accurate, reliable data.
So I could talk about how I stick to those standard operating procedures.
Uh-huh.
I'm really careful with my record keeping, and I double check all my calculations and results.
That's a good start. But don't just list those procedures, explain why they matter.
Right, okay. So I could explain how those procedures minimize those variations and, reduce human errors,
Uh-huh.
and how clear record keeping makes things traceable and keeps everyone accountable.
Excellent. You're showing you understand those good lab practices and how they protect data integrity.
Okay, and I'm guessing they might ask, what if you spot a discrepancy in the data? Or what if a colleague isn't following those procedures correctly?
They might. They want to see that you're diligent in your own work, but you also speak up when you see potential issues.
Right, okay. Before the next question, I want to go back to RoleCatcher's AI for a second.
Sure.
I'm still really interested in how it helps with those technical questions, like this one about data integrity.
So RoleCatcher's AI, it can analyze the job description and figure out what parts of data integrity are most important to that specific employer.
Oh,
For example, if they're big on quality control or regulatory compliance, it might suggest focusing on that in your answer.
it's like getting an insider's view of what the hiring manager really cares about.
Exactly. Even subtle tweaks in your answer can make a difference in how you come across.
Okay, I'm definitely using that feature. It's so smart. All right, what's next?
Okay, let's try this one. Describe a situation where you had to address a safety concern in the laboratory. What steps did you take?
Okay, this feels like it's showing my commitment to safety, my awareness of potential hazards.
You got it. Safety is so important. Employers want to see that you don't mess around with it.
So could I maybe talk about a time I saw a colleague handling a chemical without gloves
Uh-huh.
and how I calmly reminded them of the protocol and offered to get them a new pair?
That's good. But again, go beyond just describing it, what was going through your head.
Right, okay. So I could explain how I knew that specific chemical was dangerous without gloves.
Uh-huh.
The risk of skin irritation or absorption. And I could emphasize why I acted quickly and respectfully for everyone's safety.
That's perfect. You're showing your knowledge, your ability to think about hazards, and your commitment to a safe environment.
Yeah. I'm betting the interviewer might ask, what if the colleague refused to wear gloves?
They might.
Or what would you do to prevent this from happening again?
They want to see that you can be assertive but professional,
Right.
and that you're always thinking about how to improve things.
Okay, before the next question, I want to circle back to something we talked about earlier about networking.
Networking.
Yes, it's so important for chemistry technicians, right?
Absolutely essential.
Yeah.
Especially in science. Those connections can open up all sorts of opportunities.
Yeah, yeah. So besides going to conferences, how else can I network?
Joining professional organizations is a great way.
Like what kind?
The American Chemical Society is a big one,
Uh-huh.
or groups specific to your interests.
Okay, and what about online, like LinkedIn? Is that good for science networking?
LinkedIn is awesome.
Don't-
Connect with people, stay up to date on trends, even find jobs.
So I should build a profile, join those conversations, connect with people whose work I admire.
Exactly. And remember, networking's not just about getting favors or jobs.
Right.
It's about building real relationships, sharing what you know, and helping each other grow.
Okay, I like that. It's about being a part of the community.
Exactly. Ready for another question?
Yeah, bring it on. I'm feeling unstoppable.
All right, let's see. Describe the steps you take to ensure safe handling and disposal of hazardous chemicals in the laboratory.
Okay, so this is about knowing those regulations and protocols and showing I care about the environment.
Spot on. Proper handling and disposal is crucial.
Yeah.
And employers want to know you take it seriously.
So I could talk about how I always check those safety data sheets.
Those STSs.
Follow the labeling and storage rules, and make sure I know the correct disposal procedures for every hazardous material.
Great start. But don't just list things. Explain why they matter, how they keep everyone safe.
Right, okay. So I could explain that the SDS has all that crucial safety info, like first aid and spill response, and that labeling and proper storage prevent accidents and keep incompatible chemicals separate.
You're showing them you understand those safety principles and that you're committed to minimizing risks.
Exactly. And I bet they'll ask, what if you find a container with no label?
Probably.
Or what if someone's disposing of something incorrectly?
They want to see you're not just following rules, you're proactive about safety.
Okay, that makes sense. Before we move on, can we go back to something you mentioned about different industries where chemistry technicians are needed?
Yeah,
Because I'm curious, how can I tailor my answers for those different places?
that's a great question. So those core skills transfer across industries, but highlighting specific experiences relevant to each one can really make you stand out.
Okay, so if I'm interviewing for a pharmaceutical company, I should mention my experience with, like, drug analysis techniques or my knowledge of GMP.
Exactly. And for environmental science, talk about those environmental sampling techniques or regulations.
So I need to do my research on the industry, figure out their needs, and then tailor my answers to show how I fit in.
You got it. Even small changes in what you emphasize can make a big difference.
Okay, I'm definitely going to do that. Now, hit me with another question.
All right. Describe a time you had to deal with a laboratory emergency. How did you respond?
Okay, this is all about staying calm, knowing those emergency procedures, and keeping everyone safe.
Exactly. Emergencies happen. They want to see that you can handle them.
So maybe I could talk about a time when a small fire broke out in the lab.
Huh?
And I can explain how I immediately pulled the fire alarm,
Good.
evacuated everyone, and used the fire extinguisher to contain the fire until help arrived.
That's a good example, but walk them through your decision making.
Right, okay. So I could talk about how I assessed the situation, identified the type of fire, figured out the hazards, and I'd emphasize that I followed the procedures to keep everyone safe.
That's great. You're showing them you can stay calm, assess risk, and act decisively in a tough spot.
Yeah, and they'll probably ask, what if the extinguisher didn't work? Or what would you do to prevent it happening again?
They want to see that you're resourceful and that you learn from these experiences.
Before we get to the next question, can we touch on certifications again?
Of course.
Because RoleCatcher's Guide talked about how they can really boost my career.
They can. They show that you're committed to your development and that you've got specialized knowledge.
So besides just looking good on a resume, how do they actually help?
Well, some are actually required by employers, like that laboratory safety certification, especially if you're working with hazardous stuff. Other certifications, like for specific analytical techniques, can make you more competitive for specialized roles.
Okay, so it's about investing in myself.
It is.
Gaining that extra knowledge.
And staying up to date.
So it's a commitment to always improving.
Exactly. Ready for more questions?
You bet. Bring them on.
Okay, let's see. Describe your experience with quality control procedures in the laboratory. What steps do you take to ensure the quality of your work?
Okay, so this is all about showing that I'm meticulous, I understand quality standards.
Right. Quality control is everything in science.
Yeah.
Employers need to know you can produce reliable data.
So I could talk about using control samples, doing those duplicate analyses, and documenting everything, even the deviation.
That's a good start. But remember, don't just list, explain.
Right, okay. So I could explain that those control samples are like a baseline,
Right.
right? They make sure the method's working, right? And that duplicate analyses help me assess precision and find errors.
You're showing that you understand the principles behind good quality control.
Yeah, and I'm sure they'll ask, what if a control sample fails?
They might.
Or what if you find a data entry mistake?
They want to know you're not just following the steps, you're actively looking for and fixing problems.
Makes sense. Now, can we talk about RoleCatcher's AI again?
Of course. What about it?
I'm still thinking about how it can help tailor my answers. Like, can it identify those key words that employers want to hear?
It can. It can analyze those job descriptions, find those keywords, and even suggest how to weave them into your responses.
So it's like having someone highlight the important stuff and then tell me how to use it.
Exactly. It helps you speak their language.
Right, right. And those keywords often reflect the company's values, right?
They do. So using them shows you've done your homework.
Okay, I'm loving this AI more and more.
Yeah.
All right, what other question do we have?
Okay, let's look at this one. Describe the steps involved in performing specific analytical technique using specific instrument.
Okay, so this is all about showing my technical knowledge, my attention to detail, and, explaining things clearly.
Exactly. They want to know you understand the techniques and instruments and that you can explain things accurately.
So if they asked about, say, a titration using a burette,
Mm-hmm.
I could describe each step, preparing solutions, filling the burette, adding the titrant drop by drop, observing the endpoint.
Uh-huh.
I could even explain those calculations to determine the concentration.
That's good. But remember, don't just rattle off the steps like a robot.
Yeah.
Explain why each step matters, you know?
Right, okay. So I could explain how using a standardized solution ensures an accurate concentration,
Uh-huh.
and the importance of adding the titrant slowly near the end to avoid overshooting.
You're showing them you really understand the technique.
I bet they'll ask, what are some common errors? Or what if you can't get a consistent endpoint?
They might. They want to see you can troubleshoot,
Right.
analyze data, and
Right.
think critically.
Okay, before we go to the next question, can we go back to something we discussed earlier?
Sure. What's on your mind?
We talked about how RoleCatcher's AI can analyze those behavioral questions.
Uh-huh.
And I'm wondering, can it also help me figure out what technical skills are most important to highlight in my answers?
Absolutely. It can analyze those job descriptions and pinpoint the key technical skills they're looking for.
Oh, that's so helpful. It takes the guesswork out of trying to figure out what to emphasize.
Exactly. So you can focus on showcasing the skills that matter most for that specific job.
Okay, I'm definitely using that feature. It's like having a cheat sheet for my interview. All right, what's next?
Okay, let's see. This one asks, imagine you need to explain a particular chemical analysis technique to someone with no background in chemistry. How would you approach this?
Okay, so this one is all about communication skills.
Right.
Breaking down those complex ideas, making them relatable.
You got it. Communication is so important in science,
Yeah.
not just with colleagues, but with the public, stakeholders, even new lab members.
So if I were explaining something like chromatography,
Mm-hmm.
I could maybe use an analogy, like separating colorful candies with filter paper and water.
I love analogies.
Right.
They make things so much easier to grasp.
And then I could build on that, explain the basic principles using simple language,
Yep.
maybe even visuals.
That's a great approach. But remember, know your audience.
Right. So if I'm talking to high schoolers,
Yeah,
I might use a different analogy than if I'm talking to executives.
exactly. It's about meeting them where they are.
Okay. And I'm sure they'll ask, what if they ask a question you don't know the answer to?
They might.
Or what if they challenge your explanation?
They want to see that you're adaptable, that you can handle those curveballs with grace.
So it's about being a good communicator, knowing how to explain things, and being confident in my knowledge, but also humble enough to admit when I don't know something.
Exactly. And speaking of good communication, have you tried using RoleCatcher's AI to practice those explanations?
No, but I'm definitely intrigued now. Tell me more.
Well, it can analyze your responses to those types of questions,
Uh-huh.
give you feedback on your clarity, how concise you are, the language you use.
Okay.
It might even suggest other ways to phrase things, give you examples of analogies.
Wow. It's like having a personal speech coach.
It is, and clear communication, it's key to success in any scientific field.
Okay, I'm definitely going to use that to practice explaining those complex concepts in a clear, engaging way. All right, what's next?
Let's see. Describe a situation where you had to address a safety concern in the laboratory. What steps did you take?
Okay, so this one's back to safety. Showing that I'm committed to it, that I can spot those hazards, and that I know the protocols.
Safety is paramount.
Yeah, for sure. So maybe I could talk about a time when I saw a spill of a hazardous chemical.
Uh-oh. What happened?
I could describe how I immediately secured the area, alerted everyone,
Uh-huh.
and then followed the spill response protocol.
That's a good start. But remember to explain what you were thinking, why you did what you did.
Right. Okay. So I could talk about how I assessed the situation, thought about that specific chemical,
Mm-hmm.
how flammable it was or how toxic,
Ah,
and why I took those immediate steps to protect everyone.
you're showing that you understand the risks and that you can think on your feet.
Yeah, for sure.
Ah.
And they'll probably ask, what if you didn't know the spill response protocol? Or how would you prevent it from happening again?
Those are good questions. They want to see that you're resourceful and proactive.
Makes sense. Now, before we go on, can we circle back to something we talked about earlier?
Sure, what is it?
We talked about how important networking is.
Right.
And I'm wondering, how can I network effectively as a chemistry technician?
Great question. Well, attending those conferences and industry events is a good start,
Yeah.
but joining professional organizations can really help.
Like what?
The American Chemical Society is a big one,
Okay.
or groups focused on your area of interest.
Okay, and what about online platforms like LinkedIn?
LinkedIn is fantastic for connecting with people in your field, staying updated, even finding jobs.
So I should build a profile, join conversations, connect with people I admire.
Exactly. And remember, it's not just about asking for favors.
Right.
It's about building relationships,
Yeah.
sharing knowledge, supporting each other.
Okay, I like that. So it's about being a part of the community, contributing to the field.
You got it. Ready for another question?
Bring it on. I'm feeling more confident with each one.
Okay, this one asks, describe the steps you take to ensure the accuracy and precision of your laboratory measurements.
All right, so this one's about showing I'm meticulous, that I understand those measurement principles.
Exactly. Accuracy and precision are crucial. Employers want to see that you value reliable measurements.
So I could talk about using calibrated instruments,
Uh-huh.
following those procedures, being really careful with my technique.
Good. But don't just list things. Explain why they're important.
Okay, so I could explain how calibration keeps those instruments accurate
Right.
and how proper technique, like using the right pipette volume or reading at eye level,
Uh-huh.
minimizes those errors.
You're showing a deep understanding of those principles.
And I'm sure they'll ask, what if you suspect an instrument isn't calibrated right?
They might.
Or what if a colleague is using a technique that could mess up the accuracy?
They want to see you're proactive, that you
Yeah.
speak up.
Okay. Before we go to the next question, can we go back to RoleCatcher's AI again?
Sure. What about it this time?
I'm curious, can it also analyze those technical questions?
Absolutely.
Can it help me figure out which technical skills are most important to emphasize?
It can analyze the job description and pinpoint those key technical skills.
That's amazing. It takes all the guesswork out of trying to figure out what the employer really wants to hear.
Exactly. So you can focus on showcasing those top skills.
Okay, I'm definitely using that feature. It's like having a secret weapon.
Okay.
All right, what's next?
Okay, let's see. Describe your experience with quality control procedures in the laboratory. What steps do you take to ensure the quality of your work?
Okay, this feels like it's about showing I'm detail-oriented,
Yeah.
that I understand quality, that I care about those reliable results.
You got it. Quality control is key.
So I could talk about using control samples, doing those duplicate analyses, and documenting everything carefully.
Good start, but go beyond listing. Explain why these things matter.
Right, okay. So I could say that control samples give you a baseline to compare against.
Uh-huh.
Make sure the method's working right.
Uh-huh.
And those duplicate analyses help me check the precision of my measurements and spot any potential errors.
You're demonstrating that you really get those quality control principles.
And I bet they'll ask, what if a quality control sample fails?
Likely.
Or what if you find a data entry mistake?
They want to see you're proactive about catching and fixing those issues.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, I know we've talked about this before,
Uh-huh.
but I'm still really curious about how RoleCatcher's AI can help me tailor my responses to specific job descriptions.
Okay, tell me more about what you're thinking.
Can it help me identify those keywords and phrases that are really important to the employer?
Absolutely. It can analyze those job descriptions, find those keywords, and then suggest ways to weave them into your answers.
So it's like having a personal stylist for my interview answers, making sure I'm using the right language to impress them.
Exactly. And those keywords, they often reflect the company's culture, so using them can make a stronger connection.
Okay, I'm definitely going to use that feature. It's like having a cheat sheet for how to impress the interviewer. What else do we have?
Let's try this one. Describe a time you had to deal with a laboratory emergency. How did you respond?
Okay, so this is about staying calm under pressure, knowing those emergency procedures, and protecting myself and everyone else.
Exactly. Lab emergencies happen, and they want to know you can handle them.
So I could talk about a time when maybe, where? Okay, wow, we have covered so much in this deep dive into the world of a chemistry technician.
Oh, it's been a whirlwind.
From dissecting those tricky interview questions to, career paths, certifications, and of course, RoleCatcher's AI.
That AI is a game changer.
It really is. So, before we wrap up, let's, distill everything down into those key takeaways.
Like a concentrated solution of interview wisdom. I love it.
Exactly.
All right, so one of the biggest things for me is you have to showcase both your technical skills and those soft skills.
Yeah. It's not just about knowing the instruments. It's about problem solving, communication, teamwork.
Labs are all about collaboration. Employers need to see that you can work effectively with others.
Totally. Another big takeaway, at least for me, was how powerful storytelling can be in those answers. It's not just about stating facts. It's about bringing those experiences to life.
I love that. It helps them see you as a person, not just a piece of paper.
And speaking of resumes, we can't forget about RoleCatcher's AI tools.
Right. That CV Builder and Get Discovered feature are amazing.
Seriously, they can make you stand out to those employers.
But even with the best tools, remember, genuine enthusiasm goes a long way.
Yeah. When you're passionate about chemistry, it shows.
It really does.
So before we wrap up, I want to leave our listeners with a final thought-provoking question.
Okay, I like it.
Think about a recent advancement in chemistry that truly excites you.
Ooh, good one.
Could be a discovery, a technology, even just a concept you've been learning about.
Why is this important?
Because it shows that you're not just looking for a job, but a place where you can contribute to science, right?
Exactly.
That passion is contagious, and it's something they'll remember.
And remember, just like chemistry itself, the pursuit of knowledge is a journey of constant discovery, right? Embrace the challenges and never stop exploring.
That's perfect. So until next time, keep diving deep, keep learning, and keep that scientific curiosity burning bright.
See you next time.
Bye.